Good morning. How's everybody?
Doing good, doing good. Good morning,
Good.
everybody.
Survive Halloween?
We
Survived
did.
Halloween, man. So it was a cold one.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I was surprised at the number of trick or treaters that no longer wear a costume.
Oh, really?
Like,
Just kind
Really?
of just
just show
random,
up.
yeah, with a
Yeah, just
bag.
randos. Your bag. Give me candy.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Uh,
Like, it was surprising.
yeah. No, we had a good number of them were in full costume. Some scary ones even caught me by surprise. A couple of them, uh,
Hmm.
but and there was a few of the teenagers are coming around just kind of collecting candy, but they some of them
Yeah.
tried to put a
Yeah.
costume on, but I think we went through like 6 bags, Costco bags of candy,
Holy cow.
which are ginormous. It's like and we shut it down at like 7:30. We were out of
Whoa.
candy. I mean, it started early at
Yeah.
5, and it was nonstop.
Yeah, we had a lot. We had a lot too, so it was pretty
Yeah,
entertaining. There are some people, and I find this interesting. There are some people that they don't participate; they just turn off their lights and they
yep.
don't give out candy. And I don't
Yeah.
know. It's like,
I don't understand that at all.
Well, it's called you have a dog
oh,
that barks.
Heather,
Yeah. In
Who
fact,
was that?
even my daughter and her boyfriend went out. They dressed up. You're young adults, but they went out to dinner, and so they opened the door, and I have all the lights. Like I'm hunkering down, and they walk out, and some kids come running up to the door, and I'm like, I don't have any candy. I don't have any candy.
oh my god,
Uh,
were you scarred? Is this a memory of some bad Halloween experience that happened to you?
We weren't allowed to do once that back in the day when they started putting razor blades in candy.
uh, yeah, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my parents shut that
that
down.
urban
Yeah,
legend. Okay,
yeah.
yes.
Well, no, it was. Yeah, you'll like this one. I actually, we got 4 grandkids, so 3 of them. One of them went with a friend, fine. 2 of them went with their mom, totally fine. And then one of them, yeah, Adeline went off just to go to one place, to get
Oh,
big candy bars apparently, and
oh,
you know 20 minutes later, she wasn't back. So I'm not. I said, "Where the heck is she?" So I started searching for her. So I had to do I got my 10,000 steps in just trying to find her.
mm,
And she was off having a great time, just collecting all the candy she could.
Yeah, we had a teenager search last night, but that'll be for a different
Yeah,
topic. But
yeah.
yes.
I'm like, oh my god.
All right, we have
oh
a
gosh.
slide that we're going to react to.
Yes. Let me add this on here.
Oops, I did it again.
Ooh, there you go. There you
Made a
go.
mistake again.
Man, I could talk about the slide every day until I no longer can talk about
Yeah,
comedy mistakes because I have probably seen them or I've made some of them, and so this is a
yeah,
good topic.
yeah. It is. It's a good topic. I mean, yeah.
Lots of meat on that bone.
hmm Yeah, and maybe I can start. I mean, the first one for all HR is asking the question during an interview, what are you currently making? What do you currently make? And in many states that's an illegal question.
Mhm.
And it's more, the HR folks should, and it should train their teams to stop asking that question because that's a problem. One, and then number two, um, you really need to say, hey, here's our range for the job. Yeah, will this work for you? That's the right approach. But or what are your salary expectations? But asking that question of, hey, what are you making today? What's your W-2 say? That can get you in a lot of trouble.
Well,
Mhm.
that's symptomatic of a bad hiring process. So if your HR team is asking questions that they shouldn't be asking, then chances are pretty good. And you could have random people that are new and maybe they're not trained yet. But beyond that, that's typically indicative of you don't have a well-run process. You don't have managers trained, you don't have HR people trained, you don't have the whole your whole talent acquisition experience is not good for the candidate or for the organization. So you have to, work hard at that to improve that. I have so many bad talent acquisition stories where I was the candidate and I was a part of them. And it just boggles my mind how poorly constructed some of these processes are. And it's very common because TA takes a lot of work. There's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind.
Yep. So true. So true. Heather, any thoughts on this one?
Well, I think that, you mentioned process, and I think that's some of the biggest issues is that there are none. There is no process. So that has to happen first. The process, procedures. Gosh, I think we talked about this yesterday. I was even asked during an interview, this was years ago, if I was married and had kids.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are you?
Well, I did answer the question. I told him yes, but my little, I don't know, part of me on my shoulder wanted to say, you know what, that's illegal. But the interview was already going poorly anyway. I just wanted to get out of there. But
yeah, no, my best interview question was, hey, can you give us your history of all the jobs you had, starting after college with dates, which was basically a way to figure out how old you are. I thought that was a very, very interesting process to go through.
That is
exactly. Well, and if you go back to talent, I had the interview here in Houston with a very, very, very large oil and gas company. If I said the name, you would know them immediately. I'm not going to say the name, but they interviewed me for 6 months for their head of talent acquisition, global talent acquisition. We had talked extensively that I didn't have oil and gas experience before I started the interview process. I told them, look, you're going to hire me because I'm going to come at things differently than a traditional candidate does out of oil and gas. We had a lot of conversations. They insisted that they wanted me. They were good with it. They thought I'd be a great hire for them. And then at the very last minute, they started to ghost me because they had told me, hey, we're going to send you an offer right after we check your references. So they checked all my references. My references called me back and said, we love talking to them. We gave you great references. And, just let us know when the job offer comes so we can celebrate. Well, job offer never came. And so I called the headhunters that will also remain nameless. And I said, what happened? They're like, well, really at the end of it, they got cold feet because you don't have oil and gas experience. And they went with a candidate that had oil and gas. I said, for 6 months? I go, you guys couldn't have figured that out after 6 months that I wasn't the right candidate? And they're like, yeah, no, sorry. We shouldn't have done that. It was a problem. And so although I'm not naming names right now, when I am in certain circles, I make certain that I tell people, hey, look, this happened to me with so-and-so. So you need to really think long and hard about it if you go and think about a job with them. So to me, okay, they did it to me. But I think how many other people did they do things like that to? And I think at some point you do start to get a bad name in the marketplace and people will be leery of being with you. Now, the other one that I think is always a problem is in employee relations is when people don't handle employee relations issues fine. Like the person, the HR manager comes to you and says, hey, I've been thinking about it. I talked to so-and-so and they complained about sexual harassment. Like, oh my God, when did that happen? Like today, yesterday? Well, no, it happened like 6 months ago. And I just thought about it. I saw them in the hall and, we never did anything. I never thought it was that big of a deal, but I'm telling you, wait a minute. You waited like 6 months to tell me that you've got a sexual harassment issue, or your managers are untrained in being able to come to HR and saying, hey, this person just raised these issues to me and we need to deal with them. So when it's just a lack of awareness about the things that you need to do to safeguard the company.
Yeah, that's a
Mm.
really big one. Employer relations is huge, and the one that I keep hearing about more and more are policies that say things like, hey, if there's a customer complaint against you, you're going to get some type of a written warning, and just automatically. It's like, well, we know there's a lot of difficult customers out there that just love to
Mhm.
complain, so just I think organizations need to be a little bit more aware and sensitive to you know what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and because those your employees are very very valuable, and sometimes you're better off losing a customer because they're not worth the effort, just because of they're high maintenance or whatever, but you really can't afford to lose your employees.
Is this an outside customer or inside customers or both?
Yeah, or I think both. I think outside is even more where this happens more. Inside customers is a little bit different story, right? I mean, that's that one takes a little bit of more research and checking and doing some investigation. But the
Because
outside ones are the ones, yeah.
employees never lie about what HR
Oh
says. They
no, no,
never do that.
so true, so true. Uh, the one that I think is really important, especially now with such a difficult kind of employment market that we're in for certain skills, um, is having policies in place that limit how much money you can give an employee for a job change or a promotion. So let's say that you go from a individual contributor to a leader of a team of 15, and guess what? Well, we can only give you 10% because that's the max our policy says we can give you. Even though you're probably, you
Mm.
need 25% just to get you to the minimum of the range. So I think policies like that have got to be looked at and really kind of thrown out the window, because it's really about paying people for the job, uh, and making sure that that they're fairly compensated.
Well, this is another one that's bad process by the HR organization is if you are lowballing people when you hire them. So you don't want to be a company that lowballs people when they come in the door. Now, you may like the fact that you're getting people under market, but your attrition is going to be horrible because they're always going to leave for a job that has more money, and then they're going to constantly be underpaid, and the market will keep moving, and they're going to keep being underpaid. And so, I think that if you have a policy that says you're limiting it and you're underpaying it, you've really got a problem in comp, and you need to address that.
Yep.
So I have an interesting question. Talking about policies and procedures, handbooks. We see that happening with a variety of our clients or in our past where a policy doesn't exist or it's poorly written. So my question to you is it better to have loose policies, parameters, or very specific? Because I've heard the good and the bad on both sides.
Well, there's some things that loose policies are good for, and there's other things that loose policies aren't good for. So, specifically in employee relations, you always want flexible policies because
Mhm.
you don't want to have to be roped into doing the same thing in an employee relations situation every time, because you may have different situations that may require different, uh, different situations and different ways to handle it. I think that like Ray's right about comp. I mean, I don't think you want to have we only pay the 10% written down, and then if something changes, you are creating a precedent and like,
Mhm.
oh, you're paying this guy at 10, but we've been now this guy's getting 20, but I'll also been at 10. I mean, I think for the most part, loose policies are better where you can, but by the same token, your loose policies need to be comprehensive enough
Mhm.
that it's clear about what people need to do and can't do.
Mm. Yeah, I think that the area where you really need to have your policies pretty buttoned up are things like time away, PTO, vacation, sick time, uh, you know, the process that you use for disability, short term, long term. Yeah, those have got to be really buttoned up. Yeah, because you really don't want to have a lot of, you know, you get 2 weeks, but at manager's discretion,
Yeah,
you can get 3 weeks.
exactly.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, because then all of a sudden, all the managers' buddies are getting the more of a PTO,
Mhm.
and the female or minority employees are not. So those are the where you can get into a lot of problems. But
Yeah,
you know,
the compliance stuff, you're right.
yeah,
You really want to be very clear on the compliance stuff, like disability,
hmm
because or leave, because a lot of managers and employees will totally thumb their nose at the leave policy, like, oh, I'm having surgery, but you know what? And I'm going to be out for like 3 months, and so I'm just going to take PTO for 3 months. No, that's
hmm
not how we do leave here. We have leave
yeah,
policies for a reason, and so you want to make sure that anything that's compliance related is treated very seriously. Like when I was at BMC, oh my gosh, our SOX compliance policies were like ironclad. We were so focused on making sure that nothing went out of the ordinary with our SOX stuff, which was good. And so there are areas like that you want to make sure that your policies are very, very crisp on, for sure. But if you
Mhm.
have something where you can have a little bit of deviation, that's cool, because employees also, as we talk to newer employees in the workforce, they don't want to have heavy bureaucratic policies. So when I talk about it being loose, where you can be loose and have some flexibility, you want that, because that's what most newer and younger employees are expecting.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing too is I think we would recommend that you have an employee handbook that's easy to understand, that's clearly written, and that can be updated on a regular basis as things change, versus other organizations that really like, you know, here's the list of 25 HR policies, on my intranet. Uh, you know,
I'll
that
get it.
is, yeah, sorry about that. Violated our first rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's the other side is the employee handbooks, easy to understand. That's what employees really appreciate, versus having to go into a library of HR policies, that are
Mhm.
you know written with a lot of legalese, and just each
Yeah.
policy is 10 pages. It's like, well, nobody's going to look at that, right? So I
Nope.
mean, that's the other thing too. I think it's one of those HR mistakes that folks really need to focus on.
One of the other ones is that when you are creating these policies or you're creating programs, is not having any interaction with your stakeholders who are going to be the recipient
hmm
of these policies.
Mhm.
There is nothing worse than HR teams who put together a policy or roll out a new comp program or roll out some new change, and they didn't talk to one stakeholder, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it hits the organization, and the organization goes, oh my gosh, who put this out? This is the dumbest thing ever. We're not buying into this. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
And then you have the entire sort of Chicken Little situation where the sky is falling and everybody's running around. So I can't really ever think of something where you roll it out and you should not have had an engagement with your stakeholders, unless it's like you're
Yeah.
laying people off, and that's
Yeah.
one's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But other than that, you need to engage in stakeholder feedback with all of these. Anything you
Yeah.
put out there.
Yeah, so true, because and also around that you've got to think about timing. Uh, because there are, in many organizations there's a cycle as to when things are being done. End of the year budgets, end of the quarter revenue, and HR rolling something out in the middle of a business process that's going to take priority. Uh, will be a big problem, and we've seen that happen over and over again with organizations that don't think about the corporate calendar, and how this is going to impact that. So yeah, so that's another big one to be very, very aware of.
particularly around sales end of quarter, end of
Mhm.
year. You don't ever want to mess around with,
Mhm.
end of quarter and end of year and having them do things that take their eye off the ball for that.
Yep.
That will get HR people in trouble quicker than a wink, as they say.
Yep. And then the other one that the common mistake that that we see is HR being the person that always says no. Uh, you know, can we do this? No. Can what about this? No. I think in the environment that we are in right now, with where you've got to really focus on retention of talent, you've got to focus on keeping employees engaged. The HR organization needs to be more about finding elegant solutions to some of these challenging problems, not just saying no.
That's
Uh,
even I saw something today or yesterday that a common mistake is knowing the balance between when you need to be a company advocate and when you need to be an employee advocate.
that's right.
That's
Great point.
that's really well said. I worked at Cisco Systems for a long time, and one of the things that I think that kept me there for as long as I was, and obviously there's people that have been there a lot longer than I was, but it was always looking at things with a business lens first and
Mhm.
saying, hey, look, how can we solve this problem? Like, this is a business problem, let's figure it out. I
Mhm.
didn't want to sit in my office and always be the person to say no. And I used to have managers or directors or VPs that would come to me and they would say, hey, you're really good at feeding the system, giving the system what it needs, but then also figuring out how to solve my problem. And so I took a lot of pride in that. Like, okay, we're going to, make something happen. And then there were times where if it was something that was coming from corporate or it was coming from the CEO's office, telling them, hey, look, I can't do anything about this one. Like literally, my hands are tied. My finance manager won't let me go lower. But but really being clear about what were the things that we could work around and what are the things that there was actually just no way of getting around. And
Yep.
you said it really well, Heather. That's really important. And people value that in their HR person. I mean, you can easily say no all the time, and then they're going to work around you. So
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one way or another, they're going to figure out a solution, with or without you. That's
yes,
very important.
Bono says
Uh,
about that.
yeah. Uh, hey, well, I've got one. Maybe this one a little bit more controversial. How about marijuana testing? Drug testing. In certain areas of the country where it's legal.
I think it has to do with safety. That's where it all has
Yeah.
to be revolved around, right? Is
Hmm. Right. Yeah, I mean, there's some roles. I mean, a driver, a forklift, somebody doing a forklift,
exactly.
somebody working in a warehouse. I mean, things of that nature. Totally, totally understand. But are you going to drug test a financial analyst? For marijuana in Colorado. Or
Well, why not?
yeah.
You want someone to take care of your finances that are, I mean,
Uh huh.
Well, I think that this one,
Hmm.
to be honest with you, we're pretty much going to a um, place with this where you can't do any testing, and really you can't do any
mm,
testing even for the forklift driver.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in California, really any testing on marijuana or anything as it relates to being concerned about marijuana usage in the workplace is really prohibited. So you can't really do anything about it. And so a lot of these rules that are going on about marijuana testing and marijuana usage in California are spreading to other states. So my words of advice would be really, really careful about this. Really make sure that the state that you're in is okay with this, because these rules are changing really, really fast, and you don't want to be in a situation where you're thinking about testing people or even questioning people about marijuana usage and your state is not allowing you to do it. So, and if you have a large employee contingent in California, you can't do it. And if you have people outside of California, you maybe want to be in a situation where you unify your policies. I know this is a real bitter pill to swallow, but we've done a lot of conversations about this, and I think we were in some significant presentations about this, where this is really one that's going in a very different direction. You got to be really careful.
Yeah, and I think this one is really about training your managers on what to look for. If there's a problem, if there's a safety issue, somebody stumbling around. It's no different than somebody who's under the influence of alcohol. But it's really it really is a difficult one to to work on and to focus on for leaders and for HR departments. So yeah, definitely a lot of research and working with your legal team on what you can and can't do in a different state.
I would immediately call us if you've got something going on with what you're working on, or as it relates to marijuana testing in your environment, or concerns about marijuana usage or something. Call us on the phone immediately. We're really versed in this topic, and we can walk you through it. It's very complex, and the ability to walk into a quagmire and get sued and have a huge mess is really real. So call us ASAP, and we can help you. And we don't want you to make some mistakes, because this is just changing so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing on employee handbooks. I mean, we've got templates and examples of handbooks that we have put in place for multiple clients throughout the U.S. And we'll be more than happy to help you with any of those kind of challenges that you may have. But these are all, like Jason said, lots of legal issues, lots of potential liability issues if you don't handle it the right way. And you've got to get yourself prepared and buttoned up before you start talking to employees about these kind of issues.
The one last thing I'll add about the marijuana usage is that you need to keep in mind that psychedelic mushrooms are legal in a number of states and a number of places. So it can be marijuana and it can be psychedelic mushrooms that people can be on. It's really pretty much the same thing. So don't confuse the fact that it's a fungi drug, not the green leafy drug. Well, it's pretty much the same thing. So you need to be careful on all of these things. Yep.
So true. So true.
And
Heather gives out no candy, no nothing. So there's nothing that you need to be worried about at her house. You get zero upkiss.
You get a toothbrush.
Yeah, you get sent home.
And I was going to mention too that the work that we do is also global, so it's not just limited to organizations that are in the U.S. And so and Jason and Ray both have lots of experience in that area too. So
we're helping out Africa and New Day with some things, and we're super happy to be partnering with Africa and New Day, a great international charity that works all across Africa, doing various philanthropic things. So we're working with their executive director, and we're thrilled to be partnering with them. So so we work all over, whether it's Africa, France, Spain, anywhere. We are there.
We're there. Yep. Awesome. And also, a quick shout out to the food banks. As we go into the holidays, think about volunteering, think about donating. I did a donation or a volunteer event last week on Friday. We brought out they brought out about 200 boxes of food, and there were 220 people in the parking lot waiting to get food. So huge need out there, and please think about as the year ends, some of these charities really need your help.
Yes, and don't drop frozen turkeys from a helicopter. And that's an old WKRP reference. So if you ever want to watch that episode on YouTube, go ahead and search it for it. And you can watch Les Netzman drop frozen turkeys from the helicopter for Thanksgiving and the havoc it caused in Cincinnati. So it's a great episode.
taking people out with frozen turkey.
Frozen turkeys.
What?
Oh
Okay.
man, that's too funny. Too funny.
Yes, for you millennials, you will definitely have to Google that. You probably don't even know what WKRP is, but you know, it was a
I'm
great
looking it up.
episode.
Awesome.
You gotta look it up. All right. All right, that's how to get a hold of us, right? Heather, how do we reach you?
Email is heather.simmons with 2 M's at thrivehrconsulting.com.
Yeah, and Ray, REY at thrivehrconsulting.com.
And if you didn't get any candy as you went by Heather's house, you can email me and I'll send you some candy. I'm at Jason at Thrive HR Consulting. I want to make sure you were rewarded. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
all right.
Take care, everybody. Have a great
All right,
day.
have a great week. All right, bye.